Just minutes before a life-changing interview, a young black mechanic saw a smoking Mercedes pulled over at a blind curve. A white woman stood beside it, panicked. He knew stopping could cost him everything, but still he knelt down bare-handed to help. The price of kindness was steep. He arrived late and was disqualified. What he didn't know, the woman was a powerful CEO, and her way of saying thank you would change his life forever. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thought. The screen is pitch black, like the final stillness before dawn in rural Georgia. Then, slowly, the radiant golden light of the summer dawn rips through the darkness, illuminating a new day that promises scorching heat. The warmth rising from the ground signals an oppressive day ahead. The incessant chirping of cicadas from the green bushes is already vibrant, like a familiar melody of summer. The soft chime of an alarm clock rings, a small sound, but enough to cut short the brief sleep. Tyrese Hill, a 19-year-old black man, tall and thin, flinches slightly. He doesn't linger in bed for a second. The radiant golden light of early morning seeps through the window, shining down on Tyrese's hands, long, slender yet firm fingers, smudged with grease. He gently sits up, his body a little stiff from many late nights. Beside him, on an old stool, a worn blue binder rests, like a treasure. Tyrese carefully, almost solemnly, places his hand on it. Inside are all his preparations. Meticulously finished detailed engine models, intricate technical diagrams printed with carbon paper, and numerous pages filled with formulas and ideas. This isn't just a portfolio, it's an entire journey, an endless preparation for the scholarship interview at the Institute of Technology, a prestigious academy, the only gateway for him to gain specialized education and a chance at a new life. Tyrese knows that this interview is extremely difficult and his only chance, with no reschedules or second opportunities. It demands not only solid technical knowledge, but also a comprehensive test of his thinking, problem-solving abilities, and personal character. Hundreds of students from all over, with brilliant academic records and outstanding experience, are competing for a few scarce scholarship slots. For Tyrese, a young man without advanced degrees or a favorable starting point, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He dreams of working with the most advanced engines, designing world-changing machines, developing knowledge and skills far beyond what could be learned at Eddie's garage, reaching new heights in the field of technology. Tyrese would never have had this chance. But it was Eddie's strong and heartfelt letter of recommendation, the old garage owner who had watched and nurtured Tyrese since he was a child, that convinced the admissions board. Eddie highlighted Tyrese's work ethic, perseverance, and innate talent, showing that he was a rough diamond needing to be polished, worthy of this special interview opportunity. From an old hanger, Tyrese carefully takes down his white shirt, meticulously ironed. Despite the scorching weather, he wants to appear as presentable as possible for this crucial interview. In the small, simple room adjacent to the garage, Tyrese walks to the single bed where his grandmother sleeps soundly, her silver hair spread across the old pillow. He gently leans down, kissing her forehead, a silent kiss filled with all his love, gratitude, and a quiet promise for a brighter future. The creaking of an old bus breaks the morning stillness, carrying Tyrese away from the narrow alley. He sits by the window, his gaze distant, passing familiar scenes, lush green trees flying by under the glaring sun. In his mind, a faint memory flickers, an image of himself at 12 years old with wide, curious eyes, being handed a wrench for the first time by Eddie, who then showed him how to remove a tire. The clinking sound of metal, Eddie's and little Tyrese's laughter. Returning to the present, Tyrese's eyes become more determined than ever. He tightens his grip on the slightly damp binder in his hand, as if holding on to his entire future. The old wristwatch shows 6:30 in the morning, much earlier than any interview Tyrese had ever known, which was scheduled for 9 o'clock. He wants to ensure that no risk can steal this sole opportunity. One chance, only one. No one gives you a second chance, Tyrese. If you're late, if you fail, no one asks why. They only see your skin color and where you live. That voice, haunting yet motivating, echoes in his head. The fear of failure blends with a fierce desire to escape his current life. Tyrese's face is tense, but the flame of hope still flickers in his eyes, illuminating the path ahead. The clock on the old bus ticked by, then stopped at 8:30 in the morning. Tyrese was looking out the window when he suddenly felt a slight tremor run through the vehicle, as if something was going wrong. The intense early summer sun had begun to beat down, making the air inside the bus hot despite the air conditioning trying its best. The incessant chirping of cicadas from the roadside trees echoed in, creating a characteristic sound of summer. Suddenly the bus engine abruptly sputtered, coughed a few times, then fell silent, like an old machine taking its last breath. The bus swayed slightly, then came to a complete halt in the middle of a deserted highway, baking under the glaring sun. From the front, the bus driver's tired voice echoed through the crackling speaker. "Sorry, folks, the bus has a technical issue. We've called for roadside assistance, but they're expected to arrive in 45 minutes. Sighs and grumbles mingled with groans from the passengers, a chorus of dissatisfaction. Tyrese checked his wristwatch. Exactly 8:30 in the morning. His interview was at 9 o'clock. Without a moment's hesitation, Tyrese sprang up from his seat, a decisive movement like a soldier receiving orders. He quickly opened the door, squeezed through the crowded rows, ignoring the confused glances of the other passengers. The frame tightens on Tyrese's feet, his first steps a bit awkward from the heat, but then quickly he's sprinting down the steaming asphalt. He crosses the lush green median strip dividing the highway, passing the slowly congested traffic. The blaring car horns, mixed with the piercing cicada calls, created a chaotic symphony of urgency. The young man ran, trying to see the road ahead. As he neared the vicinity of the Institute of Technology, Tyrese suddenly saw a sleek, obsidian black Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, which should have been gliding smoothly, now parked helplessly askew, right at the deadly curve, where visibility was limited by rising heat haze and glaring sunlight. The orange cellar hazard lights flashed continuously in the harsh sun, creating shimmering streaks of light, like a faint plea for help. From under the hood, a thin, silvery white plume of smoke or faint steam billowed up, mixed with the faint sputtering sound of the engine that had stopped. Underneath the car, a trail of dark, oily water stained the asphalt, indicating a leak. A white woman, around 50 years old, stood beside the car door, her face filled with worry. Today she wore a light, elegant business suit, likely intended for an important meeting, but now it was wrinkled and disheveled from the heat and panic. Her platinum hair was matted with sweat on her temples, revealing eyes wide with extreme distress. She repeatedly raised her phone to her ear, but the screen was dark from a dead battery, leaving her helpless. She looked at her expensive wristwatch, then into the car, where a small high-end leather briefcase and important documents lay on the passenger's seat, indicating her desperate situation. Her expensive high heels were covered in road dust, both showing her helplessness and creating a stark contrast to her usual polished appearance. She even bit her lip, trying to suppress the rising despair. Tyrese stopped short. The camera slows, focusing on his face, then to the car, then back to his face, capturing the moment he had to make a decision. Initially, Tyrese intended to keep running. He had come too far, only a short distance remained to the sole goal of his life. A voice echoed in his head, "No, you only have 15 minutes to get to the interview. If you turn back, you lose everything. She can call for help, it's not your problem." Sweat streamed down Tyrese's face, mingling with the churning internal conflict. He could clearly feel the urge of self-preservation, the call of the future awaiting him. But then another voice spoke, deeper, heavier. But what if it were Grandma? What if her car got hit on that curve in this weather? You know how to fix cars, and if you don't do it, who will? Tyrese's eyes suddenly glinted with determination. He couldn't turn his back on someone in trouble, not Tyrese Hill. He took heavy, resolute steps toward the SUV. Tyrese carefully placed the blue binder on the car's roof, slightly damp with sweat, a reminder of what he was sacrificing. His voice was deep, a little hoarse from the sun, but full of sincerity, echoing amidst the piercing cicada calls. "Ma'am, I can help. Can you open the hood?" Tyrese didn't hesitate for a second. As soon as the hood popped open, he quickly identified the main problem, a loose ignition wire and a thick layer of carbon buildup on the spark plug cap. Tyrese's hands, despite being greasy and soaked with sweat, expertly removed the coil pack, meticulously checking each spark plug. He had no gloves or other professional tools besides what was available. With a ballpoint pen, he carefully scraped and cleaned the carbon buildup, using a corner of his sweat-soaked t-shirt clinging to his body. Sizz. A small sound rang out as hot oil splashed onto Tyrese's hand. He gritted his teeth slightly, suppressing a cry of pain, an almost unconscious reflex. The woman stood there, silently watching his every move, her eyes wide with astonishment, following the young man's professional gestures. The engine suddenly chugged a few times, then unexpectedly roared back to life. That sound, amidst the scorching heat, was as sweet as music, a waltz of life just resurrected. The woman, frozen for a moment, her eyes slowly shifting from extreme surprise to deep emotion. She couldn't believe what had just happened. "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" Her voice trembled, full of gratitude, her hand unconsciously touching the car door, as if to confirm everything was real. She turned to Tyrese, hurriedly asking, "You? What's your name? Where are you rushing off to?" Tyrese quickly wiped his hands on his pants, breathless. "I'm Tyrese Hill, ma'am. I'm going to the Institute of Technology for a scholarship interview. I have to go now." The woman nodded, her eyes showing a hint of surprise, then even more worry as she looked at the watch on her wrist. "Thank you so much, Tyrese. I'm Allison Whitmore. My phone died and I didn't know what to do. I have a very important meeting." "Institute of Technology. But you're going to be late. Your interview's at 9 o'clock and it's already 8:55. Tyrese only offered a faint smile in the glaring sun, his eyes still resolute. "It's okay, ma'am. I fixed something today. Your car can run for a while, but you should have it checked at the nearest garage." Ms. Allison Whitmore offered him some money, but Tyrese just shook his head. A decisive shake, full of self-respect. He turned his back, began to run in the sun, quickly disappearing around the curve. Before running, Tyree quickly retrieved the binder from the car's roof, clutching it tightly. Allison Whitmore's watch now read 8:58. 3 minutes passed quickly like the blink of an eye, as she still stood stunned for a moment, watching Tyree's figure completely disappear. A voice echoed in Allison's mind, like the reverberation of a long-forgotten truth. Better to help late than to abandon and regret. Allison Whitmore watched Tyrese's figure disappear into the glaring summer sun. A strange feeling swelled within her. Initially, it was immense relief at escaping being stuck and late, but that was quickly replaced by curiosity and admiration. She had just witnessed a young man, drenched in sweat, standing on a hot highway refusing any reward, even though he was in a hurry himself. Why did he do that? A big question popped into her mind. Not for money, not to impress, just simply to help. That went against every rule she usually saw in her calculating world. The sincerity in Tyrese's actions was like a gentle breeze in the stifling heat, stirring her heart. She recalled his resolute gaze when he said, "I fixed something today." A simple, powerful truth that resonated deeply within her. No one knew Tyrese had stopped. No surveillance camera recorded the entire moment. No one will credit you. But if she had an accident, and you knew how to prevent it, who would you be if you walked away? The internal voice echoed in Tyrese's mind, a silent self-interrogation. He knew he had made the right choice. At least, a car got fixed today. A strange calm spread within Tyrese. The heat, the fatigue from the long run were nothing compared to the serenity of knowing he had done the right thing. A strangely deep peace, as if he had shed some invisible burden. Tyrese ran a long distance, then found a gas station restroom nearby. His whole body was burning hot, drenched in sweat, but an unpleasant burning sensation in his hand still lingered. He turned on the faucet, and cold water ran down his palm, washing away the dark black of grease and a little blood from the hot oil burn. He looked at himself in the mirror, his face soaked with sweat, grimy. "I'm such an idiot," he mumbled, a wry smile on his lips, both self-reproaching and finding himself foolish. However, a strange glint appeared in his eyes. Even though everything was against him, even though he might have lost the most precious opportunity of his life, Tyrese still clutched the slightly damp binder in his hand, as if asserting that he hadn't given up yet. The glaring light of the summer morning had risen high, bathing the asphalt road in yellow, making the air scorching. The gates of the Institute of Technology loomed, cold and imposing. The clock already showed 9:15 in the morning, as Tyrese ran like the wind, his steps heavy but ceaseless towards the gate. The white shirt he wore was now soaked with sweat, clinging to his body. His heart pounded in his chest, not from fatigue, but from extreme anxiety. He had arrived, but was it too late? He hoped so intensely that he could almost feel the warmth of the opportunity's door opening slightly. As Tyrese reached the gate, a middle-aged bald man with a stern face and cold eyes was already standing there. He was in charge of the interview today. Seeing Tyrese, he raised a hand to stop him without a hint of expression on his face. "More than 10 minutes late means disqualification. Policy is policy." His voice was decisive, each word like a cold, unappealable verdict. The security guard nearby, with an indifferent expression, glanced at Tyrese and mispronounced his name as Therese, an additional disrespect that pained him even more. Another female staff member, just glancing at Tyrese's sweat-soaked and dusty clothes, turned away with clear disdain. Tyrese tried to explain, his voice hoarse from being out of breath, from the despair welling up. "I'm Tyrese Hill, sir. I'm sorry for being late, but I helped a woman whose car broke down on the highway. Her car—" But the person in charge didn't let him finish. He interrupted, as cold as ice. "I'm sorry, everyone has a story, but rules are rules." The heavy clunk of the automatic iron gate slowly closed, bit by bit, like a final judgment for Tyrese. The glaring sun still beat down, blinding him, but it couldn't dispel the coldness of the disappointment that enveloped him. Tyrese stood motionless before the now closed iron gate. He stared into the void, his empty eyes following the harsh rays of sunlight reflecting off the road. He let his hand drop, the binder still in it, but now it felt as heavy as a burden. Then, slowly, very slowly, he placed the binder in the recycling bin beside the gate. His every movement was heavy, full of helplessness and despair. A hot tear rolled down Tyrese's cheek, mingling with the lingering drops of sweat on his face. He cried for only a brief 3 seconds, a choked sob escaping his chest. But then he swallowed everything back, swallowing all the resentment and bitterness. His face returned to its familiar cold expression, but his eyes were filled with an ultimate, unnameable pain. "They don't care what you did. They only look at the time. You're late, you're wrong. Rules are for those who have no right to talk back." The internal voice echoed in Tyrese's head, bitter and resentful. He felt an immense injustice weighing on his shoulders. He had done the right thing, sacrificed his own opportunity, but no one acknowledged it. But she wasn't left stranded. "You might not get the scholarship, but you're not a coward." The choking sadness remained, but deep within him was the pride of his dignity. Even if the world turned its back, he still knew who he was, and his worth wasn't in a degree or an interview. Tyrese bent down, quietly retrieving the binder from the recycling bin. It wasn't pristine, slightly wrinkled and with a bit of dust, but he held it tightly in his hands as if clutching the last fragile piece of hope. As Tyrese walked away from the unforgiving gates of the Institute, the weight of his dashed hopes pressed down on him. The relentless summer sun seemed to mock his despair, and the once promising future now felt like a cruel mirage. He moved like a ghost through the bustling city streets, each step heavier than the last. His mind replayed the cold words, "Rules are rules." Suddenly his eyes caught a flicker of movement in a narrow alleyway he was passing. A small, scruffy stray dog, no bigger than a shoe, lay whimpering, its leg twisted at an unnatural angle, its eyes wide with pain and fear, met Tyrese. There was no one else around. The city rushed by, oblivious. Tyrese hesitated. He had nothing left to give. His shirt was still damp with sweat and marked with grease. His hands still burned from the hot oil. He was utterly defeated, carrying the weight of a lost dream. A cynical voice whispered in his mind, "What's the point? No one will thank you. No one will see this, just like before. Walk away, Tyrese. You've got enough of your own problems." But then he remembered his grandmother's gentle hands, Eddie's quiet wisdom, and the desperate eyes of Allison Whitmore. He saw the helpless fear in the dog's eyes, a reflection of his own vulnerability just moments ago. With a sigh that carried the exhaustion of his soul, Tyrese knelt. He pulled off his sweat-soaked, still dirty white shirt, carefully tearing a strip from the hem. He ignored the burning in his own hands as he gently, with the practiced hands of a mechanic, splinted the tiny leg using a broken twig he found nearby and the makeshift bandage. The dog whimpered, then licked his grimy hand, a tiny, trusting gesture. Tyrese sat there for a long moment, stroking the dog's matted fur. The pain in his heart didn't vanish, but it shifted, became less raw. He had done something small, for someone who truly needed it, with no expectation of reward, and in that quiet act a fragile sense of purpose, a reaffirmation of his own inherent worth began to bloom in the ashes of his dreams. He stood up, leaving the dog a half-eaten granola bar from his pocket. The dog watched him go, its eyes still full of pain, but also a flicker of gratitude. In Tyrese's small room, he slowly took down the Academy Applicant 2025 sign from the wall. Each movement was filled with disappointment, but also a hint of acceptance. He folded it neatly, carefully putting it away in a corner of the closet like a sad memory. At Eddie's garage, the familiar yellow light spilled out, bringing with it the warmth of familiarity. Eddie, the old garage owner, still worked quietly, wearing his faded t-shirt and oil-stained overalls. He didn't say a word of comfort or inquiry. He just quietly placed a cold soda on Tyrese's workbench, a simple gesture filled with understanding and care. "You still have a shift tomorrow," Eddie said, his voice husky but warm, breaking the heavy silence. That simple statement was not pity but an affirmation of worth, of a place where Tyrese always belonged. Tyrese looked at the soda, then at Eddie, a faint smile appearing on his lips, a smile of acceptance and also of gratitude. Tyrese continued to diligently repair an old engine, the clinking of wrenches against metal echoing rhythmically. Life seemed to have returned to its old routine, but a lingering scar of failure remained in his heart. The intense sunlight from outside streamed through the cracks in the old tin roof, creating sharp streaks of light on the garage floor, but it couldn't dispel the darkness in Tyrese's heart. About 2 weeks after the interview, suddenly, the phone on his workbench vibrated insistently. An unknown number. Tyrese frowned, intending to ignore it, thinking it was a telemarketing call or a prank. Eddie, the seasoned garage owner, standing nearby, gently urged him with a husky but meaningful voice. "Answer quickly. It might be God calling." Tyrese hesitated for a moment, then picked up. The warm professional voice of Dr. Allison Whitmore came from the other end. "Hello, Tyrese. This is Allison Whitmore, the person you helped on the highway 2 weeks ago." Hearing this, Tyrese understood. Allison continued, her voice full of confidence. "After that day, I contacted the Institute of Technology to tell them what happened, and also to inquire if there was any student named Tyrese Hill who had applied for a scholarship. I was very pleased to find out that you were indeed that person. I reviewed your scholarship application portfolio, Tyrese, and I must say I was very impressed with the technical aptitude you demonstrated through each drawing, each diagram. I know you couldn't attend the interview that day, but I would like to invite you to my office at Apex Motors so we can talk privately. Can you come this Friday morning?" Tyrese felt a surge of electricity run down his spine. He tried to remain calm, his voice slightly trembling. "Yes, ma'am, I can." The meeting location was a luxurious, light-filled office on the second floor of Apex Motors, a large, renowned EV company. On Dr. Whitmore's desk, a small plaque clearly stated, "Dr. Allison Whitmore, Executive Director of Product Development and President of the Apex Motors Scholarship Foundation." Today she wore an elegant yet comfortable business suit. Tyrese walked into the room, feeling out of place in his white shirt, which, though neatly ironed, still had a somewhat rustic appearance. Tyrese's hands, still calloused, his fingernails still showing faint dark specks of grease, stood out strangely against the white fabric of his shirt. Dr. Whitmore smiled, inviting Tyrese to sit. "Thank you for coming, Tyrese. I want to say that I was truly impressed with what you did that day. Not everyone stops to help a stranger, especially when they themselves have something so important happening." She looked directly into Tyrese's eyes, her voice becoming more serious. "Tyrese, some might think your actions on the highway were a reckless, impulsive move, or worse, a deliberate attempt to impress for personal gain. What do you think about that?" Tyrese took a deep breath, pouring all his strength and self-respect into every fiber of his being. He stood up straight, his eyes firmly meeting Dr. Whitmore's. His voice was deep but firm and full of spirit, without a trace of fear. "Ma'am, I fixed your car because if I didn't, you could be in danger. I just knew if I walked past, I wouldn't be myself anymore. The only benefit I thought of at that moment was your safety, not my own." Dr. Whitmore listened, her eyes full of understanding. She nodded gently. "I've seen your work. You passed another test. Not everyone stops when it matters. And not everyone reacts that way to a difficult question. You stayed true to yourself in the heat, in silence, and even when questioned. You don't need a score. You passed the real test." She continued, her voice ringing with conviction. "Your skills are undeniable through the meticulously prepared portfolio you submitted. But what truly makes you stand out is your moral character. At Apex Motors, we look for engineers who are not only technically proficient, but also have a strong sense of responsibility to the community and society. You have both aptitude and integrity, Tyrese." The meeting ended. About a week after the meeting with Dr. Whitmore, Tyrese received the official call. He had been accepted into a special scholarship program at Apex Motors, which not only covered his tuition but also provided a living stipend. Furthermore, he was assigned a personal mentor, Dr. Allison Whitmore herself, and an early internship position at the major EV company Apex Motors, where he could turn his engineering dreams into reality. Years later, the familiar hum of machinery at Apex Motors' cutting-edge R&D facility replaced the clatter of Eddie's garage. Tyrese, now a respected lead engineer in the powertrain development department, moved with purpose through the sleek, modern lab. His hands, though still capable, now handled complex diagnostics and design simulations on advanced holographic interfaces. He wore a simple, well-fitted polo and khakis, a subtle uniform of quiet competence. One afternoon he stood before a new electric motor prototype, its intricate components glowing softly under the lab lights. Dr. Allison Whitmore, now the Chief Technology Officer of Apex Motors, joined him, a knowing smile on her face. Their discussions were no longer just mentorship, but a true collaboration between peers, both driven by a shared vision. "This is it, Tyrese," she said, gesturing to the prototype, "the core of our next-gen lineup. Your team's work is groundbreaking." Therese nodded, a quiet pride in his eyes. "We've built on solid foundations, Dr. Whitmore, learned from the best." His gaze drifted for a moment to a framed photo on his desk, a slightly faded picture of Eddie, grinning, grease on his cheek, standing proudly beside an old, repaired truck. Later that week, Tyrese found himself back in Georgia, not in a lab coat, but in a simple t-shirt and jeans. The air at Eddie's garage still carried the familiar scent of oil and metal. Eddie, now older but still sharp, looked up from under a lifted hood. "Thought you'd forgotten us, big shot," Eddie grumbled good-naturedly, a twinkle in his eye. Tyrese laughed, a genuine, easy sound. "Never, Eddie, just checking in on the real work." He picked up a wrench, feeling its familiar weight. "Need a hand with that, old man?" Eddie chuckled, shaking his head. "Nah, just supervising. Heard you got a new program going, helping young folks learn the ropes." Tyrese nodded. "It's called the Apex Accelerate Initiative. Dr. Whitmore's idea, mostly. We partner with local vocational schools, offer scholarships and internships, give kids a real shot." He paused, looking around the humble garage that had shaped him. It's about finding the ones who have the drive, Eddie. The ones who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty and who always do the right thing, even when no one's watching. He glanced down at his own hands, no longer rough and stained, but still carrying the memory of hard work. The path from a dusty garage to the forefront of innovation had been long, marked by challenges and choices. But the most valuable lesson, he knew, wasn't found in a textbook or a boardroom. It was forged on a hot highway, in a moment of pure, unconditional virtue. And that, more than any title or accolade, was Tyrese Hill's true legacy. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.